a lot more in here than when I first came in. So there I am, fast asleep, nice and warm, and suddenly I feel this poke, poke, poke. Andy, I think it's time. Huh? I think it's time. Okay! I leap out of bed, I start gathering stuff. Okay, where's the bag? Where's the boom box? Where's the... Are you okay? Yeah, they're just about 4 minutes apart now. Okay, have you called the doctor yet? No, I'm going to do that now. Okay, I'm running around. So Jen calls the doctor, talks to the doctor, and asks, do I have time to have a shower? And Jen shared with me later that the doctor says, yeah, you sound like you're pretty good, so you can go ahead and take a shower if you want. And I'm still gathering stuff up, and the next thing I hear is, oh, I don't think we have time for a shower. So we pile into the car with all the stuff, and it's like typical, like pull into the emergency room. Well, actually, on the way there, Jen's riding to the hospital in a little unconventional way, seat down, rear end first. Hands and knees. Pull up to the door to the emergency room. I run in, my wife's having a baby! I need one of those, pointing to the wheelchair, because she's out in the entryway going, oh! So we get her in, up to the 4th floor, I think it is, and they wheel her in, get her into the bed, and bring in some ice chips, and I go to the bathroom to get a washcloth, and she's like, I think I'm going to have to push. And the nurse is like, oh, we can't have you do that yet. You should have seen the look. Like it was, really? Okay, maybe just push a little bit. We've called the doctor. We had to get her away from breakfast because the doctor thought she had plenty of time. Oh, she's doing fine. Literally it was, no, she's having this baby now. You need to be here. Because we hear apparently later that nurses that are on this work aren't really qualified to actually deliver children. So this was at, we got there just before 4 o'clock in the morning. And at 5:58, we were blessed with the love of our lives. And for those of you who don't know us, my name's Andy Moore, and this is my beautiful wife Jennifer, and this is our son Asher, who's now 13. And, you know, in that moment, everything's perfect. Everything is wonderful. We have nurses saying, looking at our child and going, wow, you guys make cute babies. And we're all like, yeah, don't we though? And then the world fell apart.
Can we take over?
Sure. We're sitting here just because we'd just like to have really a conversation. I mean, sure, we're going to share with you what happened to us, particularly in those first 2-3 years of Asher's life, and what's happened to him. But we are open to questions. If you have any questions about anything, wondering about anything, you know, we're here to just share. And just kind of let you know.
We've learned along the way that when you have a child with special needs or dealing with some kind of a medical issue, that you become an educator. So you end up teaching other people about what you're going through. So, so please raise your hand and ask. We don't have anything to hide. Asher's symptoms started probably around 2.5 months of age when one day I was changing him, or I was playing with him, I don't remember which, but he started doing this rhythmic on just this one arm, and I thought, and it went on for a while. much of it. And then probably a week or so later, or a few days later, I saw him do it again. And I thought, this is... And so then he was a daycare here. And I asked the daycare people there, I said, have you guys noticed any kind of odd movements from Asher? And they're like, no, it's probably just infant growing, and they do all kinds of funky shaking sometimes when they're growing. It's just part of most of it all and stuff. I'm like, okay. So then, I don't know, a few weeks after that, he had done it again, and I think Andy actually finally saw it happen, and I said, Andy, come here, watch, see what he's doing? And he came and he looked, he says, yeah, we should maybe go have that checked out. And so I'm like, okay. So I made a doctor appointment, and nobody else had seen this, except finally Andy. And I thought, oh good, I'm not going crazy, he did actually see this. So I go to the pediatrician, and the regular pediatrician that he has, that one wasn't there, but the other one we liked was there. And oh, we darn, thank the Lord. Asher was laying there, and he started up on this side. And I was like, oh, thank God.
Which we actually learn later breaks the 11th commandment, which is,
yes,
thou shalt not show thy symptoms in front of thy doctor.
Yeah. Yes, totally. So she referred us to a neurologist that we went to see. And in the meantime, we saw him once, and then in the meantime, it was
Thursday night.
It was a Thursday night. Andy was at Grace's team. Was here at the Grace team. I was giving Asher a bath, and he was maybe almost three months, just a little around 3 months somewhere. 3 months old, and he's having a bath, and he goes, boom. Then the other one went, then the legs started going, and then he went into a full-blown, what you see on TV, the big ones where they're drooling and all that. It's the typical seizure you might see on TV. It's called the old terminology was a grand mal, but the new terminology is a generalized tonic-clonic, or a GTC. So I scooped him up out of the bath, wrapped him up in a cloth. I was freaking out, as most parents would. I was walking up and down the hallway, talking to God, crying, please make it stop, please make it stop, please make it stop. Intellectually, I knew from taking psychology in college that, what a seizure was, but I'd never really seen other than what I saw on TV or whatever. Almost 15 minutes long was that first seizure, and for a little tiny body going through that. And then, like, in the last part of it, he was still going. I was trying to get a hold of Andy. His pager wouldn't go off, or he wasn't answering his pager. I had to call his dad, who they lived down like a few miles from here. I said, Larry, Dad, I said, Asher is seizing, he won't stop, I can't get a hold of Andy. He says, I'm on it, I'll get up to the church. He comes running in here.
Yeah, my dad comes running in and says, Andy, you need to call home right now. In fact, I've already had it dialed here. And of course, I was right out the door. And by the time I got home, he'd stopped. And of course, we took him to, we called the doctor, we took him to the Children's in St. Paul, and they checked him over, kept him overnight for observation. Of course, at that point, he didn't show anything. And then that started quite a few times when we take him in to have EEGs, never showed any symptoms. He was keeping the 11th commandment at that point. They put on what's known as an ambulatory EEG, where they actually hook up the electrodes to the head and give us a battery pack. So we had this little backpack on his head, and every time we would see something, we would actually hit a button that would mark on the timetable what was going on, so they could go there and actually look at the results of it. It turned out it did actually, we did get something. So they looked at that. We went on to medication, phenobarbital, which is one very common that they first give. It's been used for decades. And a little bit later on, it's been probably 2-3 months later, he had another one, and he would not stop. It actually was not uncommon for his tonic-clonic seizures to last 8 to 12 minutes, which is very long for a seizure. And we had one that would not stop, and we ended up calling 911. And this actually started a several-day stay in the hospital. But in this time, I mean, I really look back on it now, we had so many angels around us there, because it started off with, we get to the hospital. In fact, whoever the person who's in the ambulance showed up to our house, and I was like, man, she looks familiar to me. Where do I know her from? We get to the hospital, and then finally I realize it's Lori Pyle. Who's a member of this church? Right? And she hadn't, really made the connection until she saw the name too. Like, oh, okay, yeah. And then at the hospital, we exchanged some words and stuff. We were in the waiting room a little bit. He actually went into another seizure at that point. And so they take us out of the waiting room into one of the theater rooms next door. Or I should say, they scoop him up, we follow. The next thing we know, there are about a dozen doctors, nurses, etc., surrounding his little body on this big bed. And we're kind of huddled in the corner. And then an angel showed up. And it was the nurse saying, here's what's going on. The medication we're giving your son is one where we're actually going to stop the seizure, but it's going to make him so that he will not be able to breathe on his own. So we're going to intubate him so that he can keep breathing. And while we have him out, the plan is to go ahead and do some of the tests. We're going to do some genetic testing. We're going to go ahead and take a spinal tap, make sure he doesn't have meningitis. We're going to do, and we may actually look at doing some other things around MRI and stuff too. And then my parents showed up. And then Jen's parents showed up. So we had a group of angels around our son. And we had a group of angels around us. And when it comes to having faith in the shadows, very often you don't see it till after the fact. But you can look back and go, that was the perfect thing that we needed right then. He was out for about 3 days. We ended up having the MRI, doing at least the initial genetic testing, which came back no indicators, at least to start with. Meningitis was negative. In fact, the MRI showed his brain everything was normal. So it pretty much became a thing of, we're not sure, but let's try this. And it became kind of the mantra over the next 12 years of, we're not sure, let's try this. We're still kind of in that mode. But rather than having this world that's falling apart, or we're not sure about what's going to happen, we now have this boy, by all accounts, is like one of the cutest people on the planet. He's nonverbal. He does not express himself with words, but he certainly expresses himself vocally. You may have heard him downstairs. And he has very expressive eyebrows and eyes, and a face that when he smiles would just, crack any shadow in the world. Is there anything else you want to say? Don't let me ramble. Because I could talk about this kid for hours, really.
Parent can't ramble about their own child.
I was just actually going to say something. The one thing that I've heard from other people very often is like, I don't know how you guys do it. I don't know what you do, or how do you deal with this? And the answer is really quite simple, and it really has nothing to do with being patronizing or anything like that. But it's that we're parents. We do whatever we have to do that's going to be best for our children. Yes, we deal with seizures. We deal with a son who has special needs, who mentally is like 2 years old. We have a 13-year-old toddler. We have lock things on all of our cabinets. which have, slowly gone up as he's gotten taller. But there's so much that we don't have to deal with as parents because he is the way he is. We don't have to deal with peer pressure, drugs,
He has enough of those in him
fights.
already.
The only drug he has to deal with is the one that we give him every day. Do I wish that my son could talk to me with all my heart? And if he wasn't the way he is, he wouldn't be Asher. There are so many blessings that come with just having a child with special needs. You come to appreciate the small things. Going poop in the potty for the first time.
Celebration.
So it's like those small things that normally for a child happen in such a short amount of time, weeks or months, have now been, literally stretched over a decade. You got your list. What else am I forgetting?
I'll go get it.
We wrote down notes what we wanted to cover and make sure we talked about. Anytime.
Well, I don't know what else to segue to.
What do you want to share?
More hospital stuff?
Sure. Talk about Dr. Mary. More angels.
More angels. We have this amazing, his main pediatrician, Dr. Mary. So a week before Asher's born, you're looking for the best pediatrician to take care of your very first child that's going to come into this world. And so we came, I don't know how I picked her or picked the place, but I just did, and we got Dr. Mary, and thank you, Lord. She was awesome, and we liked her right away, and we're all right, you're it. And he was born, and she came and visited us in the hospital that first, during that first time. And then, boy, when all this medical stuff started happening, it wasn't until several years later that we find out that her very first child was born into this world, and she should not have made it. And Dr. Mary was in her first year of medical school, and she had birth to Maddie, and now Maddie is, she had a lot of physical things that were wrong, and she was mentally not delayed and stuff, but she's now living this full life that she's just an amazing kid. Well, actually, she's like in her early 20s, and she volunteers at places, but Dr. Mary, she can totally relate to us, and and I know for a fact, because she's in her third clinic now, but all of us follow her. Whenever she leaves, all of us follow her, because it is so hard to find a doctor who can relate to what you're going through. So that has been a huge blessing. Other blessings are having social workers that get you and give you the right guidance. I've heard some people talk about how they get along with a social worker, and you can get a different social, you can request a different social worker if you want, but the one we've had has been awesome. What else?
There was a time when we were on the what's known as a ketogenic diet. It's a high-fat diet, low everything else.
It's biblically based, actually.
Around, because when people would have seizures in biblical times, very often the thought was that they had demons. And they would fast. And what happens when they fast is that now your body starts to burn the fat cells for energy because there's no food to burn. And that creates ketones, which actually normalize brain function. So people would stop having seizures. And they took this to actually now create this diet where you can, it has to be overseen by a doctor. It's very strict. You actually, weigh out your food to the 1/10 of an ounce, and you have to eat it all because there's a strict ratio of fats to everything else. And he was a little over a year and a half.
He was 18 months when we started that, and so strict that you're eating like half things of butter, heavy whipping cream, of a hamburger patty. He might get to eat a quarter of that, and maybe a handful of either a vegetable or a fruit, and then lots of water throughout the day. So here is this 18-month-old, and you're forcing a sippy cup at him every hour to make him drink 3 ounces of whatever, his special Kool-Aid. So we did that, started it in June. When we got to October, one day he finally just stopped eating and drinking.
Oh, I'm done.
And he was like, "Get that away from me, I'm done with it." So we called the doc, he says, "We need to get you in here because he might go into ketoacidosis, which could kill him." So that started our 23-day stay in the hospital, which ended up with him playing staring down games with his docs, and trying to get him to eat, which was very difficult, and then which eventually led to him having a G-tube inserted, which at first was when the doc comes and says, "Have you ever thought about, we're thinking about putting in a G-tube." And I was like, you know what? The thought of anybody cutting into my son was like, ugh. I said, I need to have my hubby here to discuss that. And so Andy came for more to...
Yeah, and we actually saw some benefit in that, because really we said, all right, so if we're going to do this diet, let's actually do it. And then we could actually have really strict, we could change the ratios, because now we're feeding through a tube. We don't have to worry if he's going to take it or not. When we start doing the water and all that stuff. Turns out the diet didn't work as well as we'd hoped. Because of the type of seizures he has, which actually are as many kinds. So he's on multiple medications, because you got medications that'll work for one type of seizure but not another. So he's I don't know, are we into the 20s now as far as number of meds we've tried? We're getting close, if not.
We're in the rare ones now, the ones that only him and maybe a couple other people in the cost of one.
Now we're into the ones that are just now coming out of trial.
Yeah.
So he has, some sort of syndrome, probably. They've called it Lennox-Gastaut, although he doesn't fully fit that profile, mostly so that they can actually get some of the drugs to go through the insurance that wouldn't normally otherwise. But the things that we've been lavished on, that have been lavished on us as we've gone through these shadows, it's just really there was never a doubt whether God was with us or not. After spending nearly a month in the hospital, somebody came into the room and said, "We've submitted you guys for this grant through the Spare Key Foundation." The Spare Key Foundation is an organization that helps people who are in long-term stays in the hospital pay their mortgage. So they paid our mortgage payment that month. And it's like, and the Christmas that year was incredible. You think of the sack that you always see with Santa Claus. We had 2 of those show up at our house.
A secret Santa.
Like, it was just there. I came home one day and there were 2 big bags of things on our front stoop. Things would show up at our mailbox. It was just, we were clear that there was support, that God had his hand on us. And really, when it comes to, let me say it this way, when you're stumbling around in the dark and you may bump into the coffee table, there's really no doubt that when you put your foot in front of you, that it's going to come down on the floor. And it's really that even though you're in the dark, you keep putting one foot in front of the other, and when that foot comes down, you know there's going to be ground there.
But I also want to say that God works through us as well. When I was in the hospital with Asher during that long stay, one night I was like, you know how at hospitals they come and bother you every couple hours to poke you and make sure you're all right and check your vitals and all that, and they were checking Asher. I always, he was so hard to get to go to sleep that I was always worried they would wake him up. And we had a roommate in there. But I was restless that one night, and I stopped and I said, all right, nip this, and I just prayed to God, and I said, Lord, I said, I am restless, I can't sleep, I don't know why, but I just wish you could, no matter what, if there's any way you can use me while I'm stuck here, please use me. And so I said, thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to serve you. And so I got up and I took my book and I went out into the main area. And this nurse I walked over by the nurse's station, and there was a nurse warming something in the microwave, and she goes, oh, you're on the keto diet? I said, yeah, Asher is. And she says, is this something that this other child can have? And I'm like, well, I don't know, let me look at the package. And so she was trying to melt a popsicle. So I looked at the ingredients, and it was a diabetic popsicle, but it had some of the sweetener that you can't have on that diet. And this child had just started it, which is an ordeal in itself, and I thought, oh my God, if you give her that could set her off. And I was like, you know what, you can't give this to her. You know what, I've got a bottle, and I got Kool-Aid, and I got sweetener. I said, let me just give this to the mom. And so the mom came out, and she and I talked a little bit. I said, here, I want you to take this. I said, your daughter needs to be drinking, and I know you're having troubles as it is getting her to do this diet, but so I gave that to her. And the next day she was like, oh, thank you so much, thank you so much. And so it was just really nice to be useful, and I was just thanking God for helping me be, not me moping about and me being bored, and but being able to help somebody else. What else is on the list?
Well, the only other thing that I'd like to say, really, just before we take questions, but when you look back over the tapestry of your life and you start to see, that at the time what looked just like a thread to you is now part of a picture. When I was younger, in fact, when I was a teenager, I was involved with an Eagle Scout project. Not mine, it was another guy's. But what he did was he actually took kids with special needs to the swimming pool. And it still moves me every time I think about the looks on these kids' faces. That when they're in the pool and they got their their vest on and they're splashing around, and it's just like heaven for them. That they're actually able to swim. And it was just one of the most incredible experiences of my life. Such that later in my life I actually worked in group homes with adults with special needs, and I did that for about 3 years, a little bit before Jen and I got married. And I would take the houses that other people wouldn't take. The special, the violent cases. And honestly, I never saw any of it. It was, I don't know what happened there, but it was just either it just happened, before I got there. I got there one night, and one of the clients had been at the hospital that day because he put his head through the plate glass window. So he was pretty calm that night. But there's just, and I remember even thinking as a kid, what if? What would I do if I had a child with special needs? Well, I have an answer.
Well, and they also, when you're pregnant too, they want to try, well, you want to get tested to see if your kid's got predisposed to, you know, Downs or one of the other things. And we were like, you know, we're going to take the kid no matter what, you know, we'll take whatever God gives us, you know. And who would have thought? And I too had experience. I worked for a home health agency for a while, where I was a staffing coordinator, and so I knew about kids with trachs and G-tubes and all that, and I knew that they weren't permanent, but again, to have your own, just how God preps you, you just never know how experiences in life are going to benefit you down the road.
Jill?
You mentioned something about a social worker, Jill. What is the role of the social worker, or is the role of the social worker?
The social worker helps you connect with the programs that you can, like for getting signed up for TEFRA, which, or MA, medical assistance, which is what helps us be able to pay for Asher's medical care and his meds and all that. It also brings us to get PCA services covered by the state of Minnesota. PCAs are personal care attendants, the people that come in, because you have to have special, you have to train people to come in, and I can't just call the neighbor kid and say, hey, you want to babysit? It's a little more intense than that, but also a social worker can hook you up into programs like therapies, like horseback riding. They've got lists of all that kind of stuff. Recently, we asked about dentists, because we're having a hard time finding a dentist to, you know, I don't mind paying, but helping pay for his care, but so many dentists have their max on kids who have MA, and, you know, they need to get paid too, I get it, but so they gave us a list of that. So they are able to connect you with all different kinds of programs, depending on what your needs are. And if you run into problems, you can call them and say, well, what did you think? And they can get you to the right person or group. Yes?
You kind of joked or laughed about when Asher was able to potty.
Yes.
When he's potty trained. How many other types of milestones like that have you seen that get you jumping around?
Roller coasters.
2 years ago,
His 10th.
oh, sorry, 3 years ago now.
For his 10th birthday.
Yeah, for his 10th birthday, you know, I'm a roller coaster freak. I love amusement parks, I love roller coasters, and one of the things that I was dealing with was I may never get to experience a roller coaster with my son.
Lots of dreams.
You know, we went to Nickelodeon Universe in the Mall of America, where they have points, you know, like you can get bands with points on them, which is wonderful, because it's like, okay, we can go to Valley Fair, but, you know, we spend $70 on tickets, and who knows how his day's going to be. You know, what happens if he has a seizure and he takes 2 hours into it or whatever. So we just never went, but there was a program put on by several groups you know, with neurological disorders at the Mall of America that day, and part of the thing was we got a chance to go to Nickelodeon Universe. And we first went on the it's the backyard against swing ride where they take you out and swing you around. He and I went on it, and we went on one of the double chairs so I could kind of hang on to him. And Jen said as we came around, each time the smile on Asher's face was bigger.
And then
And then came the vocalizations.
oh, he's having an awesome time.
Yeah, and then we went on the big green, you know, the orange, whatever it's called. And it was just, we have a picture. We actually got the picture of him, and I watched him the whole time. I couldn't tell you what was coming next, because my eyes were glued on him and what he was experiencing, and it was just, you know, really in that moment, I really got that, you know, no kidding. Anything's possible. And we've been back a couple times since.
First,
Going upstairs,
yep,
another milestone.
upstairs.
Just walking was a huge milestone, because he, at about a year, he was starting to pull himself up and starting to do the perimeter walk around stuff, and then he backslid. We think it was due to the high dose of medications he was on at the time, and that may have something to do with his mental faculties too, but of course we can't prove that. But but it took almost 2 more years before he was really walking, and even his gait now, it's very, unsteady. It's more of a controlled falling forward. Not so much anymore, but because he does. But if he has to step over something, it's very ginger. He doesn't run, so that's another milestone that we're waiting for. Well, he does a little bit, but it's very straight-legged and he hasn't really done it in a while. But yeah, it's things like that. The other day, he did something he'd never done before, which was simply, and he was doing that over and over. I'm like, that's new.
Is he always so content?
You can take his toy away and he'll watch you play with it.
Pretty
Which is
much.
pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there's times he can get a little bit anxious, like if we go into a new space where there's a lot of stuff going on. For some reason, coming into the church, he kind of freaks out a little bit out in the narthex. But after a while, he gets used to things. In this room, I know he loves the stained glass windows. He'll just stare at those for hours. And he has his favorites. The music one over here is one of his favorites, which I don't think is a coincidence. Yes.
Well, just in your first scenario, on the night he was born or morning, it was January, middle of January.
Yes.
And me, the grandma, they're going to have this child in the coldest time. Seems like
Yep,
there
January
wasn't
17th.
super, super cold.
Yeah, and it was pretty cold out.
But the sun was nice and bright the next morning, well, an hour after you were born. It was nice and bright, beautiful day.
Still experiencing seizures?
Yes.
Every day.
Just about every day. Some kind. They're not always ones that will make him really tired. They're not the generalized tonic-clonic, but he has things that look like eye flutters a lot. They'll do what's known as a myoclonic jerk, which is very similar to what may happen just as you're falling asleep at night, where your body will jerk. That's kind of what they look like. It's not bad. And he has complex partials, where he will just suddenly kind of start staring off. He actually stops breathing, usually, or it becomes very shallow. His bottom lip will come out. His eyes may, divert to the right. A limb, his lips will turn blue sometimes. A limb may come up and get stiff. A leg may come out, and sometimes those will go ahead and generalize too. So those are just, when those happen, they're in a certain part of the brain that can spread to the rest. We went to what's called the C program, Seizures and Epilepsy Education, and the guy that taught that said it's very similar to the wave in a stadium. So you get it started in one little part, and it takes it a couple of times, where it's pretty soon the whole stadium's doing it. That's kind of what happens in the brain, is you may get a little bit going, and the more it happens on that one side, like any brain function, the more it's utilized, the stronger it gets. So actually, the more seizures somebody has, the more likely it is that they're going to have another one. And in fact, what's known as a focus on one side where it starts, the brain will actually mirror that on the other side of the brain as well, over time. So, the likelihood that he will be fully seizure-free in his lifetime, statistically speaking, it's probably pretty small. He'll always probably deal with some type of seizure, or will have to take some kind of medication, particularly given the number, the different types that he has. So, or who knows, you know, he may turn 18 and grow up and be done. I said anything's possible.
I have just a couple things that I want to if you touch on for us. One of the reasons why I was so looking forward to you talking was I had the experience of one of my own young people that grew up in my church learned that their child was going to have special needs. And this sounds super selfish, I'll claim that, but I thought to myself, oh my gosh, have I done what I needed to do to equip her for faith in those shadows? Can you give us an idea of what we need to be doing as a church to kind of generally, you know, what is there anything, any advice you can give us to make sure that we're equipping people that might have this occur in their own lives? Also, what can we do ongoing as a church? And also, what can we do as just people of faith as we encounter people in our communities and our workplaces and those kind of things? You guys are so positive. But please tell us where we can, you know, what not to do too. You know, what are the things that aren't helpful, and what kind of things can we do that are helpful in your opinion? Is that, I know that's huge and broad, but.
Oh, so I mean, so the thing that really helped us through like the shock of it, you know, dealing with the overwhelmingness and stuff like that, really is the support. You know, is the, because most of the time when you're going through this type of thing, any type of tragedy or anything like that, most of the time you don't even know what to ask for. So it really comes down to, you know, I know we do meals and things like that, which is great, and oftentimes it really is, it may be networking. One of the biggest things that helped us was actually just being able to talk with other people who've been through what we've been through. So if it's, you know, hey, I know of a support group for, you know, parents of kids with special needs. Oh, hey, I know that one of the things that helped us, unfortunately not doing anymore right now, they lost their funding, but there was a weekend that consisted of speakers and vendors, and, you know, we just met wonderful people because this, you know, and other parents too, because they put us into groups to start with, just to really talk, you know, and there were people who are just starting this journey and people who've been through it many times, and so it was just this ability to oftentimes just vent.
To other people who could relate to what you're going through.
Exactly. So, and that's one of the things that is really difficult to deal with is, you know, for us, we had people around us who had kids the same age who were now doing other things that our son may never do. And so you have to deal with that. You know, deal with that. My son may never play baseball. You know, my son
and when I was working here, I remember, you know, Asher was in the daycare, and I would sit at the bottom of the stairs, you know, like a few years later, and I was watching those kids, and I was just so thrilled how well they were doing, and they were growing, and they were learning, they were talking, and they were riding their trikes, and at the same time, on the flip side, it was bittersweet for me, because I was like, Asher's not going to be able to do that. He's not doing that. I don't even know if he'll be able to do that. So that's part of my ongoing losses readings kind of thing, but.
Right, and there may be a fine line, because there's an opportunity to see if we can find ways of inserting ourselves in people's lives to keep that connection. Very often people are just uncomfortable. They don't know how to relate to another parent of a child with special needs, just because there's no common experience there. But, and, you know, it's different for all people. Some people welcome that, some people don't, and it really is just look for ways to love. I mean, it's kind of what I see is it's that be open to those opportunities to say or do those things that you may not even know the difference it makes at that moment. But if you get that little whisper to say, you know, hey, I don't know what you're going through, but I do
Would
have...
you be okay to share with me too?
Right, yeah.
Would you be okay to share with me?
Let me know what it's like for you. What can I do?
What is it like?
Yeah, what is it that you need?
Mhm.
You know, sometimes that's really all you have to ask you is what do you need? And they may not know at the time, but if they think about it, I know after a while I would go, oh, I would really need this. But if I had, you know, someplace that I knew that I could go to at least make a request, say, you know, I didn't know what to say at the time, but somebody asked me what I need, and since then I've been thinking about it, and what would really make a difference for me is, you know, somebody to mow my grass this week, so I could, you know, take my family camping or something, you know. I don't know what it would be, but there's so many times when, like in the moment, I go, oh, I wish this, but then it's forgotten, and I don't think about making that request of somebody. Every once in a while. It's one of those things that we have to constantly force ourselves to carve out, because it really is easy to get into that day after day routine of this is what needs done, this is what needs done, oh, we'll do something later. And, you know, 3 years later, we still have the movie tickets that we haven't used, you know. Or we have gift cards that were given us that we haven't used.
Is that because there's no one to stay with cashier, or?
Oftentimes it is, but I mean, a lot of it, yeah. So, sometimes it's the, you know, we bump up against, there's just somebody not available during the time when we would need it, or other times it's just we haven't scheduled it. We haven't just said, look, we need to do something. Let's pick this night and we'll just do what we need to do to have somebody here.
Go ahead, Jen, you want to say something? It's
You
okay.
know, there's so many people say, oh, you've got to make time, you've got to plan that, and it's just like,
Right. Then it devolves into
You can't
something
just-
else to do.
something else to do, something else to, like I said before, you can't just call a local kid to come over and watch your kid play. It's not like you can send your child over to a friend's house to play for a while. It just doesn't work that way.
Well, and I can't help but think of, I mean, how many other young couples with children have the same challenge too,
Without the special needs.
without the
Yeah.
special needs, but this just kind of amplifies it even more and maybe takes the spontaneity, you know, opportunity for spontaneity sort of out of the picture. And it's like, how do you plan on spontaneity, you know, and enjoy it?
Right.
Enjoy it!
Well, you never know what you're going to wake up to. I
Right.
always tell our PCAs I said, you never know what you're going to get when you walk in the door. He may be loud, he may be having a really bad day, or he's crashed out on the couch, and so you got to be quiet. You can't do a whole lot, but sit and watch TV or read a book or whatever. But so there's spontaneity with that, but in terms of having a
Yeah, and it's not uncommon, you know, the divorce rate for parents of children with special needs, it's over and above what the normal divorce rate is. It's not uncommon for people just to give up.
Right.
You know, we're going on 17 years next month, right? Yeah, my math is good.
What's Asher like? Does he like music, or does he like to watch TV, or preferences, or anything?
He loves to balance things on end, so if you give him a crayon, he'll end up putting it on end, and then he knocks it over, and puts it on end, and knocks it over. That's one of his favorite things to do. When it comes to watching television, his most favorite part of any movie is the credits. He loves the Weather Channel.
Me too.
And he does love, he likes it when you sing to him. His favorite song ever is the ABC song. And it has to be ABCs. It's not Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, even though it's the same music.
Well, I sang both when he was in here, so.
Well, I know.
And I sang him Jesus Loves Me, except I sing Jesus Loves You. And what else did I sing? Oh, the B-I-B-L-E and Jesus Loves the Little Children.
Yeah, so I mean, he does really like music, and one of his favorite things at school is music time. Shakers. You give him a shaker, he'll shake it, make music and noise. He claps.
He plays the vent in the side of the wall. He'll sit in his room and go boom, boom, boom. Likes that sound.
Peekaboo is one of his favorite games.
Peek. Kaboom. You stack. You stack together like blocks or cups, and you knock it over and you go kaboom.
Well, he knocks it.
Kaboom. Wagon rides, stroller rides, swing. All kinds of stuff toddlers like to do.
Kaboom!
That's what he does when he does kaboom.
Yeah.
That's him knocking.
Kaboom! Well, I've known it means so much for you guys to be willing to come and stand before us, sit before us, share your story. I know you're comfortable with that, but it's also, what a blessing it is to have your story and shared with us. And I want to ask this because I don't want to trigger, but can we show you our love through some applause? Is that an appropriate?
Sure.
Maybe I should clap with you.
Okay, let's show our expression of love and appreciation. I think one of the neat things about this too is that, you know, a lot of you have seen Andy and Jen, and I hope this is an added bridge for you to be able to check in with them and ask how things are going with Asher, and to touch base and to create that environment that we want to have as a church. And I thank you for being resources to being available for us to learn more about what that means and the fullness of the body of Christ. Thank you so much.
Thank you for asking us, and I just want to thank all of you for your support and love through all these years and all the stuff we've been through. We could not have gotten through without your love and support and your prayers. And I know I'm not around a lot in these days, but I pray for you guys like crazy whenever I see names or hear about somebody. I'm just like, I'm in with you guys in spirit and everything. And my heart breaks for all your issues, and I celebrate when you guys have good things going. So I just thank you guys. Thank you. Thank you.
I always have to remember to listen to the announcements at the beginning of the service every day. Like I make a point of it because first thing I come in, what do I need to know about church?
What are the announcements? Thank you. My response in hearing in each of these nights, I've taken the privilege of listening to what people are saying and try to listen to what kind of bubbles up for me. And hopefully it's something that bubbles up for you too. But one of the things I heard you say in a lot of different ways is how you may not have been equipped, but you were able to get yourself through it, and now you find yourself equipped for whatever it is that the next thing that might come forward. And I can't help but think that we're all in that same boat. You know, we aren't ever going to be fully prepared for what's going to happen next. But we are fully capable of finding our way through. And we have people that will help us to get through it, and we are the ones that once we go through those things, we become the ones with that experience, and we become the ones that will share that experience. And as you said, be educators on behalf of the experience that we've gone through. We will learn and we will get to know these things. And I think that is, to be able to embrace that as the church faith community, I think is a beautiful thing. So hopefully we build an even stronger bridge than we had before. Let's continue to go on this way. Let's stand and join together in our final chorus. Here I am, Lord, as we just open ourselves to what it is that God's directing us and encouraging us to do. Our stories continue to be told, and our stories continue to find places where they intersect. Go forth and know that God is giving you a story that's equipped you with experiences that you have. Go and share that story with others in Jesus' name. Thank you for coming tonight.